Hey, cool kids. So this is the last section that we're going to be doing on notes for history of theater. And then we are going to spend the rest of this week on our final. And I'll tell you what that is in a different video. So as you know, we went up to about 1800 or so, and this will just kind of bring us up to present day. And again, what is a crazy bird's eye view overview of everything that's going on. So we're going to talk about some key trends in dramatic literature. Romanticism gives way to realism. And Romanticism is that pre-Stanislavski style where it's an emotional escape into adventure, beauty, sentimental idealism, all of that fantastical stuff, the villain being destroyed by the hero, and all of those kind of magical, wonderful things. We get back more into it, but in the 1800s and early 1900s especially, they were really concerned with things being as realistic as possible. Of course, we didn't stay there, and we'll talk about how it changed. Realism is a selected view of real life, performed as realistically as possible. Moving on from that, plays start to challenge audiences to think about social and political issues, especially with Bertolt Brecht and his theater of reform. It became much more aggressively and obviously political, trying to affect political change through theater. And finally, as we get into the second half of the 20th century, we get avant-garde theater, which is a fancy artsy way of saying, oh, the brand new stuff. And that includes absurdism. And again, that came about in the second half of the 20th century, mostly as a response to World Wars I and II, kind of what happened there. Some key figures in technical theater are Charles Keene and the Duke of Saxe-Meiningen. I don't know how to say that, but let's pretend I said it correctly. They really pushed for historical accuracy in sets and costumes. So that's back on the realism side of it. You know, back when Shakespeare was performing his works that he wrote, most of his costumes were donated by the, wealthy people of the age. And so they were Elizabethan in nature as opposed to fitting with whatever time it was. So you'd watch, Julius Caesar or whatever with people in full Elizabethan dress. Keene and this Duke moved more toward making the sets and costumes much more period appropriate. You've got Adolph Appia and Gordon Craig, who come up with what is called the new stagecraft, which are 3D sets and directional lighting. Bertolt Brecht, as I said before, he set his emphasis on theatricality by making technical elements visible to the audience. We'll kind of talk a little bit more what that means in a bit. And Robert Edmond Jones is the father of American scene design. Some key trends in technical theater: smaller auditoriums with narrow aprons, realistic box sets as opposed to wings and painted backdrops. So really shooting for realism. As I said before, historical accuracy in sets and costumes, and new technology affects all aspects of theatrical design. So you got incandescent lights now, not just flames. You have computerized design, controls allowing for elaborate stage movement. All those things that we looked at in videos before of all of the, flight rigging and all of the different computer things you can do. Obviously, that's going to affect theater as we know it. And now you're also moving into, in the later 19th century, the later 19th century and 20th century, you're moving away from realism toward impressionism. And we'll talk about what impressionism is as well. Additionally, you start to see, especially in the 20th century, a big move toward multiculturalism and a lot more visibility for multicultural people. So as opposed, we are still guilty, I would say, of focusing a lot on the old dead white people, but there are a lot of old dead people of color as well that have created a lot and produced a lot, contributed a lot to the history of theater, especially in the United States, where we are supposed to be this big melting pot as well. So you now start to get plays that explore diverse immigrant experiences, breaking down cultural stereotypes, reflecting the increasingly mixed nature of the American population and experience. And you get a lot of works by, authors like Lorraine Hansberry writing A Raisin in the Sun. You've got August Wilson writing Fences. You've got tons and tons of these different artists writing a bunch of different things. Chiara Hudes, who writing In the Heights. I probably destroyed that. But In the Heights is a very popular musical. One of Lin-Manuel's first kind of major things that shot him out into the public. Lin-Manuel Miranda, who did Hamilton, one of the first major musicals that shot him out into public knowledge. Moving forward, you let's get a little bit more specific here. So American theater in the 19th century finally blossoms into its own around this point. So previously, as in England, it was thought to be sinful. Several colonies had laws against it, and it wasn't until about the 1800s that there were theaters and performance spaces specifically for that purpose and entertainment. We have three major types of theatrical activity that are native to the US that are also wildly popular around this time. So unfortunately, the first major one that we have that's very popular is the minstrel show. Minstrel shows are blackface theater in which you would have different characters. So you might be aware from history class of the Jim Crow laws. Jim Crow is a racist stereotype character that exemplified all of these stereotypes that white people had about black people at the time. So he would be uneducated, messy, not just uneducated, but also just stupid. There's a very particular way of talking. They would have blackface, usually not even brown, like literally they would paint themselves with black shoe polish. They would have huge lips that would go way around their mouth. They'd often be wearing white gloves and things like that to accentuate that. Now, obviously, at this point, we view that as very harmful and definitely not at all what we would want, to go watch and think is okay. A lot of people in recent times are getting in a lot of trouble for performing in blackface, which is, I would argue, a very, very good thing. But it's impossible to understate the popularity of minstrel shows in the 1800s and even into the early 1900s. And I just want to stress, that's not that long ago. We have video of this. And so I've got a couple links there. You don't have to watch that if you don't want to. I can understand how that would be kind of difficult to watch, how just clearly racist it is when people are performing this. Additionally, I wanted to include a link from the Looney Tunes. Looney Tunes are the cartoons that were made primarily in the 30s, and they also come from this history of minstrel shows as well. So if you think about a Looney Tunes character, they've got gloves on usually. If you can't think of Looney Tunes, think of Mickey Mouse. Mickey Mouse also came out of this. And the reason that Mickey Mouse looks the way that he does is because he is mimicking what minstrel shows looked like. So he wears white gloves because minstrel show performers wore white gloves. His face is the way that it is because he's supposed to mimic what somebody in blackface would look like. Not great, I would argue, for, the past of our society. And again, just really not that long ago. I know a long time ago in terms of how long you and I have been alive, but really it was pretty recent compared to, 500 years ago, 1,000 years ago. And we see the echoes of it still today. This is a couple generations. This is not very long. Another very major part that is less bad and more just kind of goofy is vaudeville. Vaudeville used a lot of ragtime piano often, and it was just kind of like a grab bag of a lot of different types of performance. So you would have live animals, like a circus sometimes. You would have gymnasts, acrobats sometimes. You would have some burlesque dancing, and I included a link so that you could see what burlesque and the risque type of dancing looks like. Hopefully it's nothing that your parents would have a problem with. The people are fully clothed. I think the riskiest part of it is at one point a woman goes behind a set. It is implied that she has taken off her jumpsuit that she's wearing underneath her clothes or underneath her dress, and she sticks her arm out, and it's so suggestive. And then she comes out wearing clothes. And then there's another link that just has it's a little bit higher quality of a video that has a bunch of different types of performance that you can see. It's really light. You can tell it's much more like a variety show. It's much less about telling a story or a narrative and much more just kind of here's some stuff that you might think is interesting to watch. And then, of course, the melodrama. The melodrama we are familiar with from the pre-Stanislavski days, right? So over-dramatic performance of a lot of things, really emphasizing emotion and, think of a soap opera. That's kind of in the same vein as melodramas. So as you move into the 20th century and beyond, past the 19th century, that's when things start to get really weird. And I say weird in the sense that people Obviously, people are still trying to tell stories today, but it was around this time, especially because of World Wars I and II, that people started questioning the purpose behind everything and really started looking at art itself. That's when you get a really big explosion in abstract art. The modern art period started at this time. You start getting artists like Pablo Picasso and all of these people who are good at the normal good art, right? But are also trying to deconstruct and look at the way that we view art and how we see what art is. So I would encourage you to remember that all art is interconnected. A movement in painting will spark a movement in music or a movement in theater. They're all interconnected, especially because theater is multiple arts altogether, right? You have painting in these sets. You have performance. You have singing. You have all sorts of different types of arts all kind of smashed together when you're talking about theater. And one of the ones that happens in the early 20th century is Impressionism. Impressionism is an art form in which you suggest things. You create the feeling of something as opposed to realistically depicting them. And this becomes popular in theater as well, especially in setting. If you think of painters like Monet or Manet, both the nays, they would, or pointillism, you'd have really small little brushstrokes where if you look really, really close at a piece of art, it's impossible to tell what it is. But then if you back up, you can see a much clearer idea of what it's supposed to be representing, the idea that it's supposed to be of. And I'll put a link there too to a painting that really expresses that well. Then you've got Bertolt Brecht. Bertolt Brecht is a famous playwright he's a German guy who developed what he called epic theater. Now this is epic. It's asking the audience to think critically and to promote social reform through political action. He purposefully broke realistic illusions and stressed theatricality, which means that he would insert narration and songs in between episodic scenes. He would make stage light units visible to the audience. He would often directly ask them questions through placards or projectors. It was kind of like, you know how The Office, sometimes you'll see like a boom mic come down, the TV show The Office? Same sort of idea where you would see the inner workings of theater. He would actively take you out of your willing suspension of disbelief and often directly ask the audience to consider things by projecting questions onto the stage, having a character hold up a placard with a question, things like that. One of his quotes in a book he wrote about the art of theater is, "It is not enough to demand insight and informative images of reality from the theater. Our theater must stimulate a desire for understanding, a delight in changing reality. Our audience must experience not only the ways to free Prometheus, but be schooled in the very desire to free him. Theater must teach all the pleasures and joys of discovery, all the feelings of triumph associated with liberation." Prometheus is the Greek god who gave fire to the humans, who was punished by Zeus by chaining him to a rock and having a vulture eat out his liver every single day, and it would regenerate every single day as well. Deeply painful. And he says that we need to not only free Prometheus, but also desire to free him, learn how we should want to free him. He's very, very interested in how theater could affect a world like that. Then World War I and II happened, and everybody decided that the world was absurd and terrible. So post-war drama and absurdism. It started post-World War II, after which many artists viewed life as meaningless, communication as impossible, and the world as arbitrary. I'll upload a couple of videos here. You can watch all of it if you would like, or you can just look up clips of Tom Stoppard's Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead. This is actually a text I teach in AP Lit if you want to take that class. And basically, it's very similar to Beckett's Waiting for Godot. It is a couple of guys who are just a part of somebody else's story, and they misunderstand each other a lot. It's kind of like Abbott and Costello, but not just played for laughs. Yes, it is supposed to be funny, but it's also supposed to be kind of pointing out the impossible sadness of our inability to communicate with each other and how nobody can understand what each other are thinking and how the whole world itself doesn't really make any sense and we're just kind of along for the ride. Now that might sound kind of depressing, and it is for sure, but it's not only depressing, right? Because if the world is absurd, if there is no meaning, then we can stop searching for purpose. In a sense, we can stop trying to make it make sense, and we can exist in our little worlds and make meaning for ourselves. And that's kind of the direction that they found comfort in is, I don't have to worry about some capital M meaning, some capital P purpose to the world. I can just worry about me and what I view as meaningful and purposeful. And then, of course, now there's regional theaters everywhere. There are no more laws against performance generally. And you can get involved. Wherever you'd like, you can get involved and start performing. And I recommend that you do. Okay. Hopefully you enjoyed your final notes. I'll see you guys later.